If you're listening to us for the first time, please subscribe and thank you for listening. We have Laura Browne, and she's going to talk to us about being more confident and how to be heard. And it's something that needs to be done. And, we've talked about Laura, last time you were on, we spoke about, asking for that raise. This kind of intertwines with the same objective. So, Laura, first of all, thanks for coming back on. It's always great to see you and hear from you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for inviting me. It's great to talk to you, Rob.
All right. So, I guess we'll start off like this, because there is a lot of people that are shy in the world. Why do you feel like that is?
Oh, here's what I would say, and this
Sure.
connects very nicely to confidence and communication, that people generally are sort of 4 different communication preferences or styles, and 2 of those styles tend to be a little more quiet or a little more thoughtful. And so when you talk to somebody, people are different. So some people you talk to are going to be need a little more time to consider and a little more time maybe to be by themselves. So that's the way we're made.
But is shyness like a trait that, I guess, is this something like, if your parents are very outgoing, that you would be less shy than if your
Oh,
parents were?
I don't know, because I've seen all different things. I mean, I have seen families where everybody, let's say, is really, really outgoing, and you walk into the house and it's pandemonium, but everybody's happy and talking. I've also seen families where every single person is different. That, maybe the dad is shy, the mom is outgoing, kid number 1 is shy, kid number 2 is sort of in the middle. So I've seen all of them. So I can't really answer that. All I know is that what I like to do is I like to appreciate the fact that everybody is not like me, even though, I like the way I am, and recognize that some people are shyer than I am. And I don't want to push them to be outgoing. I just want to recognize that that's where they're comfortable. And then I try and help them to understand what they can do to be more successful, still being shy, because it's really okay to be shy.
I know we spoke about this in Increasing Your Income, 7 rules for women who want to make more money at work. I was going to say in the workplace. Well, they do want to make money in the workplace, but the
Yeah.
title of the book is just At Work. But regardless of that, there are people that, we spoke about being afraid to ask your boss for more money. Majority of these bosses do want to give you more money, as far as, and they have to go through the HR and all that jazz. But to get to the point, how do we give? And I know you talk to a lot of women, so we'll specify on women, then we'll go to men. But how do you give that confidence in that talk to these women that are shy in general,
Yeah.
whether it's asking for a raise, whether it's asking a guy maybe to go out on a date, which, usually the guy should be asking the woman. That's par for the course.
I totally disagree with you there, Rob. I
Okay.
have asked plenty of guys out, and it's been a lot of fun. So to me, people should be asking each other, but that's a totally different story. Okay. So getting back to your whole question about confidence. By the way, even though my books tend to be more skewed towards women, because I work with a lot of women, I work with a lot of guys also, not just on confidence, but on all these different areas. So when I think about, trying to be confident enough to ask for a raise or ask, somebody else on a date or whatever it is, when I talk to people, they say, I don't feel confident. And here's my secret. You don't have to feel confident in order to look or sound confident. As a matter of fact, it should be the other way around. That one of the ways to feel more confident is to focus on how do I look and how do I sound? And when you look more confident and when you sound more confident, people are going to act different, and you're going to start to feel different, and you're going to start to feel more confident. So my focus, for example, a couple of tips, like I always say, how do you look confident? Sit up or stand up straight. And what do? We slump over. We're nervous. We make ourselves small. So really focus on sitting up straight, putting your shoulders back. And then the other thing you need to do, and this is hard if you're nervous, don't fidget. Because confident people sit up straight, and they don't fidget, they don't play with their rings, they don't play with their hair, they don't play with their necklaces, anything like that. They just sit. And so if you really focus on doing that, you're going to come across more confident. And then what do you say Well, you want to make sure that you speak up, because people who aren't confident get really, really quiet. So you need to be able to speak up. And okay, here is the biggest thing I tell people so they feel and look more confident. Stop saying I'm sorry. And this tends to be a real women thing. Now, if you really made a mistake, apologize. Okay, I'm not saying that you should never apologize, but here's what happens. I come in a minute, or you're laughing at me. I come in a minute or two to a meeting. I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Oh my gosh, I got my car. I'm really, really sorry to make this whole big deal about it. No, instead say, thanks for waiting, and keep going. Because when you're constantly apologizing, the other person gets the message, wow, she's really messing up. Now, a lot of times people use an apology as sort of a conversation smoother. And so honest to goodness, we don't even notice. And sometimes when I do a class, I say, okay, your homework is go back and take a look at your last bunch of emails and see how many of them started off with, I'm sorry I didn't get back to you right away. I'm sorry I didn't answer this. I'm sorry, whatever, or even in the body of it. And stop saying I'm sorry. And I've gotten feedback from people going, oh my gosh, I had no idea. That's just how I start my emails. I'm sorry. And that makes you look less confident.
Listen, I've done that before too, even with, the conference and getting back to people. I'll say, I'm sorry, but thanks for waiting is true. That's true. It's something that I should use. And I'm going to take that advice from you just hearing this. And I hope people do take that when they are listening to this interview. I want to get into this because we talk about commanding the room. Showing that enthusiasm when you're in a job interview, when you're in a presentation, whatever it may be, this is extremely important. Stand up if you can, and really show that enthusiasm. A lot of people, like you said, they slouch over, even if you're sitting straight. I personally have done this in interviews, and I'd say, hey, can I stand up? Is that okay with you? And
I have never done that, but it shows it shows presence. So, okay, so here's my big tip. All right, so my first big tip is stop apologizing. My second big tip, if you're not familiar with, there's an awesome TED Talk by a woman named Amy Cuddy, Cuddy. She is a Harvard researcher. It's like 23 minutes long. Basically, what it is, I'm going to net it out, that her research has shown that if you stand in a certain way for 2 minutes, it can change your confidence. Now, there's been questions about her research, but imagine you stand in the Superman pose or the Superwoman pose for 2 minutes and you feel more confident. And honest to goodness, when I teach people to make presentations and own the room, I say, go into another room, and I make them go into another room and stand for 2 minutes in the Superman or Superwoman pose and come out. Now, you don't want to stand like that in the interview, but what you want to do is before you go on stage, because I've spoken to thousands of people, or before you walk into that interview, stand like that for a couple of minutes and you feel better. Here's what we do instead, though. We're waiting for an interview. We're sitting there. We're looking at our phone. We're slumped over. We make ourselves small. That actually for 2 minutes makes us feel less confident. So sitting up, putting your shoulders back. Again, if you're not in, nearby anybody, stand in the Superman pose or Superwoman pose. It makes you feel so much better.
Well, my case, like you, I like to talk with my hands. So me sitting down and just like, it's not good. I prefer to walk around the room. Maybe it's a pace. I got to be careful on that in those types of atmospheres. But regardless, I do like to talk, and I might take 2 steps and plant. I've learned this from politicians too.
Oh, yes. Yeah. To take some steps and then plant. And again, when you plant, I don't want to say you want to make yourself enormous, but again, the difference is if you plant and make yourself small, that doesn't help you. But again, shoulders out, legs spread a little bit. You want to plant and again, show that you look solid. Now, I got to say, Rob, it's really funny because you and I actually seem to have sort of similar communication preferences, that we like to talk. We certainly like to talk with our hands. We like to get out there and, and give the message. But what I find is that there are a lot of people out there that are not like you and I. And so I try and help people to understand, how do you communicate with everybody, not just people that are like you.
I think it's good too, I know politics is a bad word in American society right now, but it is good for you find a good public speaker, whatever you think of
Mhm.
some of these people. I'm not going to drop names because people like these people and people, don't like them. But we think of the great speakers of our time. Somebody like President Obama, even
Mhm.
someone like Clinton. Not to say that
Mhm.
I'm extreme fans of these people, but we're just talking about speaking styles, and they do know how to catch the audience. And you
Mhm.
also, I like to look at the way these politicians, not just those specific people, but people that are good speakers that can pump up a crowd, because you want to go into a presentation or a job interview and you don't want to be boring or dull. You want to show
Mhm.
some enthusiasm and get the people to be somewhat pumped up. I'm not saying they
Mhm.
should be, whipping out pom poms and clapping and cheering, but you do you
I
do
don't know.
want
That
them to
sounds nice.
yeah. Well, you do want them to say, hey, this guy has got a lot of enthusiasm. Let's hire
Yes.
this guy. He
Yes.
could be a real asset to our company. Or
Mhm.
this woman really has this presence among her where I
Mhm.
feel like I'm with her. Or
Yeah,
she's,
well,
yeah, go ahead.
exactly. And so you bring up a really interesting point that you should be looking at other people and you should be questioning what is it that that person does that I think is so good. So I mean, Clinton used to do this thing with this hand,
You're right.
and instead of pointing, and so he's well known for that he would do this, and so you'd look at it and go, do I like that? Yeah, I like that better than pointing. Or look at another speaker. What do I like? How are they holding their head? How are they holding their body? What are they saying? Like, one thing that you find a lot of times is powerful people pause. So a lot of
Right.
times speakers, will say something, and then instead of being fast, like I like to talk fast, they will slow down, and that draws everybody in. So you should be, I mean, if you want to be, a speaker, you should be watching great speakers and you should be taking in exactly what they're doing and then testing it out. How can I pause? How can I stand up? How can I, use my hands, whatever it is, because there's great examples out there. And also, as you said, there are some terrible examples out there. So
Yeah.
obviously we want to learn from the great ones.
Right. Yeah. And I think there's a way, we look at people on TV. I know I think there's a difference between President Bush, W. Bush, well, not the father,
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
way he used to talk to President Trump, that knew how to work the crowd and
Hmm.
knew how to, he knew the lessons of TV because he was on TV so many times. So there's
Exactly.
differences there too. So we'll
Hmm.
go both sides just to be safe with the
I
people
and
that listen.
I think that's a good idea, because again, we should look at a lot of different people, and I mean, if somebody is on TV, chances are they are doing something that you can learn from. So whether it's
Mhm.
good or it's bad, yeah, you want to learn from it. But again, when I think about, okay, going into an interview or giving a presentation or whatever it is, I never know who the other person is. Like if I go into an interview or if I'm talking to somebody. And so again, when I think about communication, I have to be ready for anything. And so one of the things I teach people is understand in the first couple of seconds, if you can, what do you need to do and try and figure out what that person is comfortable with. So for example, if I sat down for an interview with you, I start to talk to you, and in a minute, I realize that you're kind of friendly and you're talkative. And so I'm going to match your communication style as
Right.
much as I can. So you and I are connecting. On the other hand, if I sit down with somebody else and they're very, very quiet, and they sit back and they're reading from their paper, they say,
Yeah.
I have 10 questions for you. Let's get to question number one. Like, oh, no, you're laughing, but I've been in those interviews.
Yeah.
I'm going to act a lot different. I'm not going to be, happy, fun Laura. I'm going to be like, I'm going to be serious, Laura. Okay, this person has 10 questions. And I'll say, thank you. I'd like to hear question number one. And so what I do is I match the other person's preference. So like their language, I sort of match their communication language. And so it's easier for them to understand me.
See, I would probably still be
You'd
outgoing,
still be
and that's
Rob.
probably why I don't get the job in those in those interviews. But I can't go through that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 stuff.
You see? Okay. And so I appreciate that, because on the inside, I'm cringing. I'm like, oh my gosh. On the other hand, I know that I'm not going to be working working for this person. This is an interviewer. And now if I am going to be working for this person and they are so different from me, I have to make a decision. On the other hand, one of the things I love is I love working for people that are different from me. And I love having people that work for me that are different because they're good at other things. Like, for example, I will tell you right now, I am lousy at details. Okay. I mean, details just make me fall asleep, right? You too, Rob. So, I'm guessing.
Right.
And so I love to work with other people who love details. Why? Because they will do them and I don't need to, but I need to be able to communicate with them so that they do the details. And so sometimes I have to communicate, I have to be really flexible. And so I feel that flexibility is really important. Again, I think about it like language, that if I was speaking to people, who speak French or Spanish or whatever, I'd learn some words. I know some phrases, and I used to work in Japan. I know some phrases in Japanese. Why? Because I was working with people in Japan. Now, it doesn't mean I know Japanese, but I know a couple of phrases to get me started. And I think about that with communication. I need to know enough phrases to be able to communicate with the other person.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And that's the thing, Laura, is that, I've went into these presentations and stuff, and I want to talk about this because there is an issue that, your confidence level can deteriorate. And this is what I want to get to with the last few questions, because you're up there, maybe you're loose and stuff. And I think that's important too. Before we even get into the questions, I guess we'll backtrack for a second. You got to go up there and be loose, my friends. You have to be loose. If you go up there and you're stiff as a board, you will lose people, especially with people's attention spans now with social media and cell phones and everything's 2 seconds, 3 seconds, and it's got to be fast. You're going to lose them in 10 seconds. So if you're up there and you're doing that dull stuff, then you're going to be gone. You might be talking to people, but they ain't going to be listening. I'm going to tell you that.
That's true.
So just they make sure you're loose. And so let's go into that first. What tips would you give people that, maybe aren't as loose as, we are? What tips would you give them to kind of loosen up and not be stiff as a board?
Well, okay. So if we're talking, there are a couple of different things. If you're making a presentation, obviously my biggest suggestion is you need to practice. And I will tell you right now, I have presented in front of thousands of people. I've presented a ton of times. And even so, I still practice over and over and over again because I'm still nervous inside. I really am when I have to talk to other people. I just practice enough that you don't know. And my biggest tip for practicing is practice the first 2 minutes over and over and over again. Because if you can get, for a lot of people, if you can get past the first 2 minutes, then it's easier to keep going. And so, I will be driving to a presentation and I will be in my car saying the first 2 minutes over and over and over again, just so it's automatic. So that's the first thing. The second thing is really look at your audience and really think not, oh, it's an audience. Think about it's Bob, it's Cassie, it's, Fiona. It's these people who really want this information. And hopefully in my presentation, I've put together things that I think are going to connect with different people. And I really want to think, what do I want Fiona to get out of today? What do I want Tom to get out of today? And if I think about those people and I try and connect with those people, the audience doesn't seem scary. I'm connecting with different people, which is why when you're a speaker, typically you look at people and you connect with people and, you look at the person, you look at Fiona over there and you look at somebody in the back because you're speaking to those people, not some big crowd.
But Laura, you one of these people that says, and I know there's the talk of, back in the past saying, you could be speaking to 1,000 people, a million people. Just find one person and just kind of talk to them. Find that person that's really looking at you in the eyes and talk to them. Or are you one of the people that says, think of everybody in their underwear if you're nervous?
Oh, no, I never do that. I never do that because that's going to make me laugh.
It might hurt you. It might hurt you if you're looking at some people thinking about them in their underwear. But regardless.
No. And I won't. So I'm sort of in the middle of that. I won't say just look at one person because what if that person pulls out their phone? Now I'm going to feel like awful. But I like to look at a number of people. And really one of the things I teach is when you're making a presentation, you should, and you can practice this. I'm going to look at the right side of the audience, the left side of the audience. I'm going to look back. I'm going to look forward. You should be looking at different parts of the audience, so people, again, feel that you're connecting with them.
Okay. And I want to talk this, and I'm going to mix and match some of this stuff. So let's talk about enthusiasm. There are people, like we've spoke about, that have it, like we do.
Yeah.
There's people that are dull as a box of rocks. Besides that, you know,
no judgment there, right, Rob?
Right. Well, we tell the truth here on the program. Can you teach someone enthusiasm or no?
Well, that's kind of a funny question. So I don't know about teaching them. So there are two different ways to take a look at that. The first way is, can you help somebody to understand the benefits to them if they show enthusiasm? So basically, if I can connect somebody and say, and motivate them, that the reason you want to be enthusiastic because the crowd will be connected with you. So help them to understand why. But then there's a second part, which is, what are the physical attributes of somebody who is enthusiastic? And so, for example, I could break it down. And again, now sometimes, and I haven't done this in a while, but sometimes I will tape somebody. I mean, you know, we've got Zoom or, you know, Teams or whatever. So you can record yourself and you can look and you can break it down. How much are you smiling? So enthusiastic people smile. Okay. I mean, that's the simplest one. So make sure that people practice smiling, and smiling a lot, not just a little sort of fake smile. So, I mean, so practice, you know, smiling a lot. And enthusiastic people tend to speak louder. Sometimes enthusiastic people tend to speak faster, but you don't want to be too fast. Enthusiastic people tend to move a little bit. And again, there's, you know, for presentation skills, there's ways that you can practice moving. It doesn't mean you have to wave your arms around like crazy, but it just may mean, you know, that, oh, I have to remind myself to turn a little bit, or I have to remind myself to have a hand gesture. I have to remind. So it's for people that are normally like that, that sounds very robotic. But anytime you learn a new skill, when you learn to ride a bike or whatever, you have to do step by step. And if you're not used to showing enthusiasm, having somebody look at your information, having somebody point out, and you look at enthusiastic people and say, what do? They turn their head. What do? They smile. What do? They move their hand. That's what I'm going to do.
Oh, I thought I had muted myself, but I guess not. Okay.
Nope, you're still here.
Sorry. Okay, so we'll move forward with that. And thank you for that. So let's go on toward the end of the interview. Again, for people listening, Laura Browne here on Fire Breathing Rob, definitely check out the books. They're right behind her, so you can't miss it.
Right behind me. Yes, but I've got more. If they come to my website, first of all, I've got a free video on something I haven't even talked to you about, Rob, which is how to be happier. And oh my goodness, we need that right now. So it's 7 steps on how to be happier based on one of my favorite books, The Happiness Advantage. So that is a freebie, and I absolutely recommend that. I've got classes on communication, on confidence. And if the listeners use the word special in there, they can get 20% off. And actually my communication class right now is on a discount. So there's plenty of information, and there's just, you know, lots of little tidbits. And there's also a free class on how to get a raise at work. So check out Career Tips for Women and see all the good freebies that you can get.
All right, definitely check it out. And it was careertipsforwomen.com?
Yes, thank you. Careertipsforwomen.com. Yes. Okay,
careertipsforwomen.com. Definitely check it out. You can see all the books. We might have to do that, have you come back and speak about the happiness topic. It's a topic that definitely needs to definitely needs to be spoken about through this time of crisis in this country and around the world.
It is true. And actually, I speak to corporations about that. So I teach employees how to be happier at work, and I'd be happy to talk to you about that.
Sounds like a plan. We'll definitely get that planned after we finish this interview. Let's finish off with the last thing. We've talked about so many different topics throughout this interview, Laura. What do you hope people learn from our time today?
Oh, you know what? Honestly, the one biggest thing, stop apologizing. If that is the only thing you remember, that is going to make such a difference, because other people hear this And they start to, after a while, again, if you're the kind of person that keeps apologizing, they're going to start to think you don't know what you're doing and you're not confident. So there are plenty of things we talked about, but that is my one big tip. And I hope you will all go away with that.
CareerTipsForWomen.com, Laura Browne, LauraBrowne.
Yes.
Emphasize the E.
Yeah.
Anyways, check it out.
Excitement.
Definitely check it out. We love having Laura on. We're definitely going to have her on again to talk about that happiness topic. I'm very grateful to have you on again, Laura, and thanks so much for your time.
Thank you, Rob. It is always fun. You have a wonderful day.
All right. Thank you.